the YouTube channel. And whatever it is what it is. And that way, if somebody wants to look back at the recording, they sure can. Hello, I am Carly Wharton, and I am we'll call me a self-taught astrologer. No qualifications of any kind, can't stress it enough, that all I can offer is my perspective. I also do my best at channeling divine inspiration, universal love. A lot of my interpretations get wrapped up in a filter of love is ultimately my goal. To help people see themselves more clearly is how I would put it, but with more loving eyes. So using astrology as kind of a framework to have a conversation, and then we can really get to some root type things that are going on inside of us, patterns that we brought with us to work on healing in this lifetime. So for this session, I wanted it to be extremely open-ended, as flexible as it could be, so that whatever you all have in you right now that feels relevant, that's what I want us to talk about. We have 90 minutes, which feels like plenty of time to literally spend time with each of you with whatever it is that you brought with you. So I think just relax and I think we're going to be able to talk to everybody, and yeah, whatever that looks like. I'm so excited to just see what unfolds, and if there's overlap between what's coming forward, if there's kind of a single thread of we're all here to hear something similar, or I trust that everyone is going to take away whatever it is that you're needing at this point in what you're facing. So that's my hope anyways. I was going to offer to, is it Louis or Luis, that if we wanted to go to him first, we definitely can, if he's open to that. I'm not trying to put him on the spot, because he emailed me a question a while ago and the answer was so big and delicious, it felt like it was doing it a complete disservice to type it back in an email. Plus, that's a lot of time to type it back in an email. So that question being unanswered this whole time has been weighing on me and is part of why I think this is kind of coming to fruition right now. So, Louise, I do have your question just to kind of refresh, and so everybody's kind of caught up on what you were asking about. So he's talking about transits and as the planets move around, and there are sites out there that will give you predictions about what this transit energy might manifest as or feel like in your life. And he's got two different transits. One that says it's an emotional trial, so you'll go through depression and loneliness. And then at the same time, there's a different transit that says it's time to master self-control. It'll be a period of expansion, luck, growth, and great opportunities. So how to know which one is more meaningful or which one will prevail? You're more than welcome to add to that, or anything that has come up since then, more context, anything that feels relevant. And then I'll do my best to kind of unpack all of my thoughts around your question.
Carly, thanks for the meeting. So you said it almost everything. Thank you. I normally use astro.com for my forecast reports. And by doing so, I just saw that the information could be quite antagonist. On one side, it would say that I would go through an emotional trial, depression, like you said. And on the other side, it said that I would master self-control. So by reading that, I was confused which was more relevant when we read astrology to ourselves or to our friends, which would be more predominant in the forecast. And is there anything we can do to force to make our free will work more on one side or the other, or we just have to take it as a piece of advice and just learn from that phase that is coming? So that was basically my question, Carly.
Okay, cool. It's a really good one. That's why I didn't want to just type a couple lines back in an email, because the answer is, it's all of the above. all of this transit energy is technically happening at the same time. So even though it's telling you what sounds like two very conflicting realities that are supposed to happen concurrently, like how does that happen? Reality itself, I think, is like multifaceted and multidimensional, and often opportunities for expansion and growth and loving ourselves more, they can so often come through a period of depression or loneliness or like a low point, that in all of that heavy energy, you really do clarify like who you really are and love yourself a little bit more. And in that opened up vibration, more things come to you, and here's expansiveness. And so it's like all of these different transits, I look at them as like the different threads of a tapestry. So like the tapestry itself is multidimensional, it's all different colors, it's got this design, it's got this design. And the universe, the transits are a lot like that. Like every single thread has its place, and the overall effect is kind of an art form of like, how can you weave all of that together? So I would imagine if I saw both of those interpretations at the same time, that it will be a period of shadow work, and that through that shadow work, this opportunity for expansion and abundance and self-love and all the things, that the nice things that it promised, that it's almost like telling you that, like, trust the process, trust that if there is depression, if there is loneliness, that that is really meant to be here right now, and that it probably is bringing something forward that is necessary to get to this, the part that I'm guessing you wanted to emphasize over the other part. Maybe you wanted more of the shadow. I don't know. I don't want to make assumptions, but so that's my take on, I think it's probably both. And now that the time has passed, I mean, that was like a month ago that you saw that. Do you have any like insight as far as, was it both? Like, did it end up kind of being some of both piles?
I agree with you. It ended up being both, because this was actually until the end of December, beginning January, February, until the end of December. And the weird part is, uh, you did my astrology map in May, and I thought it was amazing, actually. That's why I sent you the question, because I thought of all the astrologers I went to, your reading was the best so far.
Well,
And I had a really good job in Canada, money wise, and I just quit my job. And I'm unemployed. I'm 49 years old. I came back to Portugal. I'm living with my parents for now. And I was in a crossroad back then in May. And I read that I was going to go through a depression this year, but probably I didn't read in too deep into it. I because I didn't know I would have these consequences in my life of quitting my job, being unemployed, and basically both transit happened during this year to 2021. So that was why I was so eager to get your answer about which transit I should be focused on more. And but it makes complete sense to be focused on both, and they're connected.
yeah.
And from that depression, I did get insights, and I did have some insights, and I did get into depression because of the old insights. So just like a new phase recycling. So yes, very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. That like really, to get the most out of life, we have to allow all of it. You can't just want the good parts. Like you have to open up and let whatever comes. Like I was listening to this thing this morning that said, like, let life wound you. If that's the step that you're on, let it happen. Let the pain come in, because the pain is not really who you are. So if life is wounding you, that's your misunderstanding that life can wound you. So there's something telling, like, in that pain, like any low point has a message for probably something inside of ourselves that we're doing to hold ourselves back. Because you mentioned you're 49, you're having your Chiron return right now. Your Chiron must be in Aries. Um, have you studied that at all, and like what that time is all about, the Chiron return?
I haven't. No.
No. Chiron is is a fun one no matter where you are, but it does, I mean, it takes 49 years to make a lap. So this is your first and probably only, most people only get one, Chiron return. So Chiron is a centaur, meaning it's part asteroid and part comet. At the time that it was discovered, it was the first of its kind. And since then, there are lots of centaur, asteroid, comet creatures out there in the galaxy. But the mythology side is that Chiron was the son of a goddess, like a human goddess, and a horse stallion god. So the two mated, and he came out as this part horse, part human creature that neither parent resonated with. They both found him disfigured and ugly and wanted no part of him at all. And so both parents ship him off down the river and just like he's somebody else's problem. And he was adopted by Apollo, the sun god, and he learned to love himself and help other people who felt unloved because he knew the pain of feeling unloved. So he used that experience to go out into the world and help other people who struggled with that same pain. And so that's the idea of Chiron, is that maybe our pain is there to teach us ipso facto, maybe it never really goes away. But we can certainly use our pain to help other people who are going through similar things. And so at the time of your Chiron return, it's like a test, like a space where you get to see your progress. You get to see where you're at with your Chiron wound. Chiron itself, that deep wound that we all carry, it centers around unworthiness, no matter what sign it's in. It's just like the sign can tell you a little bit more the shape of your unworthiness. In Aries, it's like an essential lack of self, like your identity in and of itself, like is just so fluid and like a giant question mark for so much of your life. And I mean, Aries is the first zodiac sign. It's the first house of the 12 houses. It's our foundation of like, if you don't know who you are in a sense of like, this is me, and so I can walk forward from this space, creating anything that matters to yourself or that's satisfying or fulfilling, like how do you do that if you don't even know who you are? So it's said to be like, they're all hard wounds, but it's said to be one of the hardest because it's kind of like tripping at the starting line, and it's like, where do I go from here if I can't even like get underway? So this time of going through the Chiron return, it's like, as we have the pain of our Chiron wound like throughout our lives, it it hurts like worse than anything else that we have. And we have to learn, like whether we really know what we're doing or not, we have to learn how to soothe that pain inside of ourselves. Like we naturally find our way there because it hurts so bad that you can't get away from it. You can only learn how to make it feel a little better. And that's the gift of that Chiron mythology, is like you develop this medicine, this soothing for yourself to make yourself feel better. And as you go into the world, like you can give that medicine away. Like the way that you make yourself feel better will also feel better to other people who are sitting with that same pain or whatever their situation is. So it's like a way to connect out into the world and to make your struggles and your pain mean something. Like you don't just have to be a victim to it. Like it can be a spark that lights a fire that warms thousands of people. You know, it doesn't just have to be something that you internalize and feel sorry for ourselves. Like that's always part of the Chiron journey there at some point, but you don't have to just live there. You can spread it on and pay it forward, so to speak. I don't know if any of that resonates. As far, I mean, 49, you're like right in the middle of that process.
It does resonate. Every time you speak, Carly, it's like divine intervention is speaking through you, because I think that's exactly what I needed to hear.
Oh,
Yes.
good. Good.
Yes. Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
so welcome. Yeah, that piece is a good one to sit with. it's tender and it's sensitive, but it's necessary because I think it's part of our great work. Like no matter what we're here to do, Chiron is going to play its part as far as like how we're meant to connect with other people. Thank you for coming. And thank you for your email questions. Because like I said, without those, I mean, the session I don't think would have taken form. So yes, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Gigi, yes, you're next. Since you reached out to me before.
I'm not rushing myself or rushing you. I have a question about the Chiron that you're talking about in Louise' chart, and specifically in Aries. Can you give us an example using that Chiron in Aries and how that could be played out in that particular sign? I'm just curious. I just picked that sign because we're working with his chart, but I understand what you said. I'm just curious if you could maybe give us an example of how, just how it would show up. I don't know if I'm trying to make sense, but
I'll do my best. I know a few Chiron and Aries people. My partner is one, and the manager of my grocery store is another one. Those are the main two that I have to base this on. So a sample size of 2 is not big enough to like draw conclusions, but I will do my best to like kind of give you what I think it means. Like when you have that wound of lack of self, I see people who are maybe like, especially the first part of their lives, overly pliable to other people. Like it ends up being like where these two are now. I can see how it ends up being one of their superpowers, how pliable they really are, how flexible and adaptable and like just go with the flow for better or worse. But at the same time, like there's confidence that comes from having a solid sense of self. And that lack of confidence early on, I think that's what fuels that over pliability, where without the self-confidence, without that to kind of hold you in place, you just go with whatever. And that lack of direction, like it just leads you to a lot of places that like aren't personally satisfying. Like you go there because somebody else, like that's just what you do. And, I married him because he asked and, those kinds of things that like, why did you do that? Well, didn't know any better, like they go with the flow. And that sense of identity is like a set of roots that like hold you in place in your own values and your own integrity in your own self. And I see from both of them that they've given away so much of themselves. And where they both are now, they are like more standing their solid ground. And I think that like any kind of shadow that you come in with, it ends up being one of your superpowers. Like if you come in with that gap in your identity and you have to build it from scratch while you're insecure and like lacking that confidence, the identity that you end up with at the end is stronger as a result of like the process of going through the trials of that. So I do think that, that's the beauty of Chiron, is to get to that end point where it's like, you do have something here. The healing and the medicine that you've cultivated because of that pain is something that the world needs. Like you didn't just like, oh, good thing we got this medicine out of it. No, like you came to live the pain so that you could have the medicine so that you could give it away. So it's like zooming out of all of that. But I do think the Aries sense of self and that the ability to answer the question, I am what? I am what? Like both of them have resumes that like they're both a couple of the most talented people I know, like the most dependable, rock solid people I know. And yet they just like kind of move like couple years here, couple years here, couple years here, like don't really ever like get into that deeply rooted place of this is who I am, and this is my skill set, and this is what I'm good at, this is what I want to offer to the world. They just kind of like take the opportunity that's right in front of them instead of like proactively setting that direction and seeking it on purpose. But again, I think in the 40s and whatever, like going through your Chiron return is the transition point of moving into setting your own direction. Not just taking what's easy and what's right in front of you, but saying like, this is who I am, letting that like come up out of you and guide your life. Which I gotta think for Chiron and Aries is probably one of the scariest things you could do, but the most healing and something that the planet needs right now. That's why the path is there for those people to go through. So
Thank you.
It's fascinating getting to know, like getting to observe people in real life with the placements and just getting to contemplate like how does that play out. So yeah.
What I've been having fun with is people that I meet or I go online and they're speaking. I look at what's going on with them. I take it in energetically, and then I say, oh, this person's sun is this or the moon is this. I guess at what their signs are, and then I look up their birth. And it's so much fun. I love it. It just brings me total pleasure.
Yes. Ditto. Yeah, like anytime I'm watching a documentary about a person, like I was watching about the Theranos trial with Elizabeth Holmes, and I pulled up her birth chart because I'm like, I need to understand her actions in context of like what her soul came here to do. And I'm like, this is not the first massive scandal this woman is going to ignite, like massive scandal on a public stage, like with billions of dollars at stake. That's like what she came here for. So yeah, it's interesting to see how it all like ties back together. Yeah.
It is.
So
I listened to Paul McCartney on an interview last night and pulled up his chart. And yes, I get it. But it's so helpful for us to learn actually by doing this.
Totally. It's like people just make so much more sense when you can see their birth chart. I'm right there with you. So I recast Marianne's chart in the way that I like to look at it. So this is her chart. It might look a little bit different. But why don't you share, Gigi, a little bit about why you feel like this is timely for her chart with the transits and whatever it is you're looking at.
Yes. All right. Let's start with her birthday was last Sunday, November 7th, which is Scorpio sun natal at 14 degrees. And so this actually, I have two Scorpio friends, so your answer will pertain to both. I would like to ask you, Carly, regarding when the natal sun matches up directly with the transiting sun, what exactly is happening at that time, especially in this sign, because this is such a complex sign. Okay, and here we're looking at the first house in her chart in particular, which is pretty involved there too. So we're looking at not just the sun, but my question is when Mars is lining up with her natal, well, excuse me, not her natal Mars, but Mars is crossing, all right, her natal Mercury and her natal sun. I'm interested in what that's like. And then also when we've got the Mercury and Mercury natal and Mercury transiting, what is that term for that when they're passing exactly at the same degree? I don't know what that term is.
Return.
The return. Okay, because for example, I think today well, let me not get, that's going to confuse it. I don't need to confuse it, but I think you understand what I'm asking. She is going through some really rough time right now, and I personally feel it's got to be related to the Mercury natal and the Mercury transit, and also the sun natal and the sun transit at exactly the same degrees. That's my question. Could you address that? This also pertains to another friend, another Scorpio friend.
How long has she been going through a hard time?
Oh my gosh. Well, let me just say, this will clear it up regarding Scorpio. She holds things in until they make her sick. Okay. And she seems, my interpretation, she seems to be, we know how deep Scorpio is, but she seems to be fearful of going deep. And she's not, she seems to be, not that I mean to say something, how somebody is, I don't know, but she seems to be very restrictive in feelings to be let out by her, even though I know she's as deep as she can be and as sensitive as she can be, she puts this brick wall up. But on her birthday, which was Sunday, I called her to wish her happy birthday. She couldn't even talk on the phone because she was feeling so bad. And I think it was a big emotional thing. She's coming over today, this afternoon. We're going to celebrate her birthday together. And that's why I timely asked if you could look at her chart and give me any pointers, because I don't want to go, I want to be there for her without prodding her with questions. So I'm asking you to help me better understand her chart. Thank you. It's complicated.
So the reason that I asked how long it's been going on
Okay.
is because the Sun and Mercury only spend about a month, not even for Mercury inside Scorpio, and Mars will spend 2 months by the time it makes its full transit. So these are very recently coming into the transit energy picture for her. But if you look directly across from her Sun is Uranus, and he's at 12 degrees Taurus right now, and her Sun's at 14. So Uranus was going direct. He's moving this way through Taurus right now, is retrograde, that little R. So like he's backing up and then he's going to go again. And this opposition of Uranus and her Sun, I would imagine, is part of what is driving all of the Scorpio energy crazy in the world right now. Depending on how much you have and what it is and what else is going on in your chart and all of that, how crazy that's, going to depend for each individual. But this Uranus opposition, like, let's just take it one step at a time. So the Sun is what the world, like, there are so many different ways to interpret it, but this is my favorite. What the world needs most from you. So let's just put that into the context of what you said, as far as she doesn't like to go deep and she's got a brick wall up around herself. That is like a shadow side of Scorpio, like that overly protective, whatever. And so Scorpio, her Scorpio energy plus her Mercury's in Scorpio, like that's what the world needs most from her. And she is depriving the world of what it needs most from her. And that is not going to be a pleasant process. The world needs it and it will pull it out of her, whether she comes willingly or kicking and screaming. And it sounds like so far she's struggling with it, and that's okay. This Uranus and Taurus transit is hitting all of us. Like whether you have Taurus energy or Scorpio energy, like Uranus archetype is all about like revolution. So like throwing out the old and making space for the new, innovative, what's meant to be for right now, like what's appropriate for the times right now. It doesn't factor in like the old historical, this is what we've always done. Uranus is like, I don't care about any of that. I want the best possible solution for where I am right now. And so that Uranus energy is very explosive. And that actually points me back here as well. When you have Uranus opposite Mars or Uranus conjunct Mars, they've like done studies where that results in earthquakes and volcanoes and like real planetary eruptions. And each of us as individuals is basically a tiny little planet inside of ourselves. So emotional eruptions are definitely possible when we go through this Uranus opposite Mars time period. And we are just coming through the end of that. It looks like Mars is, or no, it's approaching right now. So it's almost exact, that opposition. So as far as like this week or couple weeks being especially hard in this longer season of hardness, that definitely makes sense. With the sun going through, that would be called like the solar return.
Okay.
So when the sun goes all the way around and comes back to exactly for her 14 degrees and 41 minutes, that's her solar return. And that's like a whole different arm of astrology, is to read solar return charts and do like a predictive forecast of the main themes of your soul's evolution for this upcoming year. So basically what that means is like these transits that are in play right now are like her solar arc, her solar return, her 12-month journey that's coming, that she's just beginning. Yeah. And so how old is she?
72.
72. Interesting. I wonder, this is kind of like jumping to something else that is taking a long time to happen and could be contributing to like her. It sounds like all of, like you said, she hangs on to things until it makes her sick. Like that is a resistance, right? Like resisting the flow and kind of clinging to the old instead of allowing the new. So Chiron in Aries, which we just talked all about, her north node is right here. And like she's just beginning. I mean, Chiron is going to spend like, I don't even know. It takes 49 years to transit. So divided by 12, about 8 years in Aries. So she's a couple years in to Chiron transiting her north node, her life's purpose, her soul's purpose. That's got to be bringing up some stuff, like basically highlighting and bringing to the surface her blockages around stepping into her soul's purpose, her north node, which already I'm guessing is difficult because her north node is exactly opposite, pretty much, her ascendant. It's like descending. I mean, technically it's in her sixth house, but it's conjunct her descendant. So it's like hidden away from her, basically. So it's like she's probably clinging because she can't see, like she can't see the future path. And it's like, how do you let go of your current security if you don't see or trust that there is something better coming if you will let go and make space? Yeah, it sounds like just a lot of resistance. And that's,
Yes.
yeah. This is a time when like that Uranus, I mean, you think about a volcano, like, I mean, it just erupts. It's like there's no holding back the change when you're talking about Uranus, like it's bursts of sudden change. And the harder we hang on, the more like destructive those changes can be. So as far as like, you know, the transits and the energy and all of that, I'm giving you more a raw version of that because it's not you going through it. As far as being there for her, what this must feel like, I mean, I gotta think it's like every structure inside of herself that she's built for 72 years is coming into question. And it's like, have I done my whole life wrong? Like you're almost at the end of it. You're in the home stretch of it at that point. And that thought has got to be so painful that even facing it and like opening up to the possibility that maybe, and at this point, what are you going to do about it? You know, like how do you face something like that at that age? I can only imagine that where she's at is scared and scared that she like has made a mistake that like you can't reverse it, you can't change it. But I think what I would like just know on her behalf and hopefully hold in this big like bubble of energy, that as she comes into your space, she can just be in this space of knowing that everything is always working out. Every single thing that ever happens is meant to be part of our soul's evolution. And her soul wanted this. Her soul came with this chart wanting this particular set of difficulties so that she could have the experiences that she had. Because regardless of what happens in her human life, the all that we are all from and will reemerge into has expanded and has benefited by her experiences. So it's really not on her to like do better or make different choices or whatever. Like the universe benefits either way. I understand like when you're face to face with her and she's uncomfortable and she's sad and all of that, like you want to help her feel better. I think like I think knowing this on the inside and letting your energy like wrap her in it like energetically is probably the best thing you can do for her. The thing about Scorpio energy is that there's no bypassing allowed when it comes to Scorpio. There's nobody else who can tell you the answer. You have to dive in there. So like supporting her in that process of like, it is scary. Yeah, you're right. It probably does hurt like hell to face some of these truths that maybe she spent her whole life denying her own truth and now is realizing like maybe the main thing I was supposed to do was embrace my truth. Like how do you make new momentum at that point? It's possible. It's totally possible.
Thank you. It's so interesting to hear what you're saying because I have another, my closest friend is also a Scorpio, and she's a whole different personality. So I'm going to look more at her chart after hearing what you've said. She's like blossoming and lit up, and her whole life's changed. So it's interesting about that. But
Nice.
that could have something to do with the age as well. But I have another question.
Mhm.
If we have time, it seems like it'd be brief, but if
Yeah,
you want
totally.
to, okay. And this is about my chart, but you don't even need to pull it up because
Okay.
for you, it's going to be an easy question. So my ascendant is at 20 degrees and my natal moon is at 20 degrees, both of Virgo. I want to know, what is that called when they're right there together? And what does that mean that they're right at the exact same degree?
So I am going to pull it up just so we can all have the visual.
Okay. Okay.
This one.
I looked online and I couldn't find anything. I suppose I didn't know what to call it, but I'm curious about that because when it hit that in Virgo this year, it was like, whoa.
When the sun did?
Yeah, when the right, we're looking at 20 degrees of each. When we were in Virgo, it was just like really big for me. That was a really big Virgo season for me. And I didn't know if that had something to do with it or not, because they're both the same at 20 degrees.
Probably. I mean, did you look back at like other Virgo seasons? And I mean, is Virgo season like regularly a expansive time for you or?
I'm sure it is because of having an ascendant in Virgo and a natal moon in Virgo. And I can identify really well with Virgo.
Mhm.
And I have a ton of Virgo friends. So it's like, I really feel very much Virgo in my chart. But is there a particular way to describe what that is if I were going to do some investigating online?
Uh, I don't know if it has a special name. Usually like when something's right on the ascendant, sometimes they'll say that it's rising. So like the moon is rising, because what it means is that the moon was exactly on like the eastern horizon at the moment of your birth. So it
Okay.
would be rising. But moon conjunct ascendant would be like how you would describe anything that is right
Thank
next
you.
to each other. That
Okay.
conjunct word just means like close together. And there's a word for when conjunctions are exact. I don't know if I'll be able to find it. No, I don't know. It has a word when it's like exact like that. It's special,
Okay.
but
Well,
the
I
idea,
couldn't find anything. So yeah, I appreciate what you're saying about that. It just felt really big. When the sun, the transiting sun
Kazimi.
moved through there, it was like highly emotional. Thank you, Carly.
yeah. Well, and I'll bet like I was going to add that the sun going through Virgo probably feels really big. I'll bet the sun going through this spot in Pisces also feels really, really
Okay,
emotional,
Carly.
expansive, on and on and on.
Carly, I would identify, if you ask me what sign I would identify most, it would be Pisces.
Interesting.
I
And
would,
what does it
and
feel
I
like?
don't even hesitate to tell you that Pisces is where I identify with in who I am. I can't imagine why I've got all those suns. And by the way, thank you, what you just put out on your moon, sun, and ascendant info on that video. That was wonderful. That was so easy to understand.
Cool.
But mine's all earth, but I don't identify with earth. I identify with water because I'm so emotional.
So you have your Venus at 0 degrees Pisces. So like 0 degrees has special significance when you have any planet at 0 degrees of a sign.
Okay.
I think it's called anaretic, doesn't really matter, but the point is that it's like the beginning of an evolutionary journey for your soul. And Venus specifically is our value system. So the
Ah,
sign of your Venus placement says a lot about what you value in the world, in your life, and how
okay.
those values become a foundation basically to how we approach things, how we make decisions, how we orient ourselves. Um, so that Venus at 0 degrees in Pisces, I think says a lot about, like you saying that you really resonate with Pisces. Mars in Pisces also opens you up, I think. My Mars is also in Pisces, opens you up to realizing that there are forces so much greater than yourself at work in this world. That like when your Mars is in Pisces, I feel like what happens in my life is somewhat disconnected from my own personal actions. Like my actions are one thing, but it's more like I drop a rock in the pond and then the ripple effects move out and eventually a ripple effect knocks the ball into the cup and like that's me winning. So it's kind of like that, like it's me cooperating with the universe. So I think that Mars in Pisces does open you up. Plus your descendant, that being the opening of your 7th house and like how you do partner with others, how you approach other people is again through that Pisces lens. So with all of that, plus, you know, having this going on the other end, yeah, I'll bet both of those signs, Virgo and Pisces, when the sun moves through there, it's a special time for you.
It is. I can definitely say you're correct about that. I love the way you've explained it, and especially with the 0 degree. So when you have a 0 degree, this is just a general question. I know someone who does. At each ascendant, descendant, MCIC are all 0. What does that say about that person? Would it be an intensity?
I would say more like it's a turning point in their soul's evolution because
Okay.
their anchor points, their axis points are all stepping onto a new path, something that they've never done before. They are venturing into new territory. So yeah, I mean, intensity I think comes more from like the exact signs and the other placements that they have going on, the aspects in the chart. But just like the 0-degree angles, I would say, yeah, it's a turning point lifetime for their soul. And probably one where that's difficult, you know, like any 0-degree placement has a degree of difficulty built into it because you've never done that before. So you're trying to operate inside of energy that you're unfamiliar with versus like a 29-degree placement, which is also significant. Like you have your Mercury there at 29 Sag. That's like mastery level. Like you've come to experience like every nuance, every challenge that can come with Sagittarius, a Sagittarius Mercury. Like you wanted it all because you wanted to demonstrate like here is the highest, most pure frequency of Sagittarius energy that the universe offers. But you only get to that by going through and like burning off all the shadows that Sag carries. You have to like move each one of them out of your way, and eventually you have this pure version of Sagittarius energy. So if you see 29-degree placements, like that's going to be a different kind of difficult journey, but yeah, they're both significant.
Thank you so much. This just lights me up.
Oh,
I'm
good.
so grateful for you and your work and your intelligence and your intuition as well. So thank you.
I am so glad. This is like my most satisfying free event that I've ever hosted, and it was totally last minute, and it's going so well. So thank you for being here and your energy as well, Gigi.
My pleasure.
So, Erica, do you have something that you were wondering about? I think I
So I was going to ask exactly what Gigi had mentioned earlier, because I have 29-degree Chiron in, it's 29 degree to like 58 seconds or so. So it's like right at the very end. And I've heard several astrologers give like their own meaning about it. Some say it's really intensified. Some say it's not a big deal because it's almost to the next sign. But I want to hear your thoughts. It's my natal Chiron in Taurus.
Okay, so interesting. Give me 2 seconds. I have your chart almost on the screen. Still had it from last time. Okay, yes, here we go. Okay. So here is Erica's chart. Fascinating. So yes, you have, it looks like 2959 actually. Chiron. Nope. Or yeah, 58 and 46 seconds. Okay, so yeah, almost to the very end. So I also have Chiron at 29 degrees, but mine's at 29 degrees of Gemini. So I'll try to keep the sign part out of it. But I think 29 degrees, when that's where your Chiron is at, is like a mastery level trajectory. I do think it has significance, that it's intentional. I also think it's interesting that is like creating this conjunction then between Chiron and your North Node, that like the two paths are intertwined here in your 10th house. That I do think the pain is heightened when your Chiron's at 29. I also believe, and this is the real point, that the medicine is that much more potent when you have a Chiron at 29 degrees, because the pain is extra that you went through to create the medicine is that much more effective and therefore able to help more and more people. So I see 29-degree Chiron as a sign of someone who is going to alchemize their pain into being a healer for other people. Whatever that might look like, I think that's where the sign and the house and kind of all of that comes into play. Obviously, can you really say, like, does 29-degree Chiron like make your pain greater? You could never definitively say that because you can't compare like my journey and somebody else's journey. Like But
Absolutely.
I do think it puts it more like at the front of your perspective. Like, I wonder if there are people who, you know, they don't really get into their healing journey until they're having like a midlife crisis, or, you know, 50s or even 60s, like when they retire and now they don't have work, they just have themselves. And so they get more into it. I do wonder if like a 29-degree Chiron, if it like pushes it to the front of your awareness, where like life is so painful, you can't wait to start your healing journey. You need to be healing like in your 20s, because you're suffering, like it hurts, and you're probably contemplating suicide and like those kinds of things, where like you're brought to a healing journey so much earlier in life. And again, I don't think that's by accident. Like, I wonder if I wasn't so miserable in my teens and 20s, like, would I be sitting right here today, like trying to help other people feel better, like already in my journey? I doubt it. Like, if I hadn't been so miserable in my corporate job, I probably would have kept cashing those paychecks and kept going. And I couldn't, because it hurt so bad to be out of alignment with who I was. So I do think that it accelerates the healing journey by making it more painful, if that's one way to put it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Have you like contemplated into that conjunction between your North Node and the Chiron?
Absolutely. And I really relate to that placement because it's in the 10th house. I freak the hell out if I don't have a job, or if something's going on with, you know, my pay rate or something to do with my income. Yeah, I freak out. Um, as a kid, I started working very young at 15. So it's always been in me that I need to be, you know, just work for something or do something. And I really relate to that placement where it's at.
Well, and that's what I was gonna kind of get into as far as like Chiron and Taurus. Like Taurus as an archetype is divine simplicity. It's where we feel inner stillness and inner peace, and like a divine, like imagine like a house cat that's like spending 5 minutes like circling in its bed to find the most comfortable position. Like, it has no shortage of time. It has no shortage of anything, no lack. It's just like getting comfortable in its own skin. Like, that's Taurus. Is you're so secure, you're so well, that you are just comfortable and at ease. That's the highest expression of Taurus. So when you have Chiron, your like soul's wound in Taurus, it's like a basic lack of comfort. It's like a basic lack of ease, and like a dis-ease, like constant dis-ease, where there's this like basically insecurity, and there's all kinds of frequencies to what that means. But like you said, like working and making sure that there's a paycheck, making sure that there's income, and all of that becomes like it gets shoved to the forefront of your experience. And it's like, yeah, but is that really the most important thing? Like, is that, probably it is. Like, it's definitely important, but is it the most important? Like, is
Well, now that I'm 37, I'm starting to question that. Like, you know,
good.
I mean, do I really need to work for the man versus me working for myself? And again, that's why Chiron's the wounded healer, you know, because we get to that age where we start healing it and then we start seeing a different perspective, I feel.
Absolutely. And I wonder how, you know, this is definitely playing its part too, that Uranus and Taurus transit, it's hitting all of us, right? That's happening for everybody. It's just a matter of where it is in your chart. And so the fact that Chiron is kind of floating to the surface as far as something to be thinking about, while Uranus is wanting us to revolutionize our relationship with security. Taurus, at the root of everything that it's about, is about being able to find a place where we feel secure, and that you can rest your eyes and you can drift off into the most peaceful sleep because you have security. when we're worried and we're anxious and we don't have enough in our bank account, we don't have enough food in our bellies, when we're insecure, when our life is in danger or our safety is in danger, however we want to define that, it's really hard to be at ease, to be in a restful state. So I do wonder, so this is another placement where I have some of these in my life, these Chiron and Taurus people, and I observe them because I find it fascinating. But I do wonder, like, it does change the priorities, right? So it says, like, I don't have time to rest, when really, like, I think we all are seeking a level of security that does let us rest, right? We want to know that we have enough money in the bank that we can go and just like, okay, I'm good now. I feel like I have a stable foundation. When it's almost like the answer, the medicine is to cultivate that inner peace while you feel insecure. So like practicing moments of stillness and letting go of the worry, and whether that's like meditation or yoga or gardening or something that carves out that space of stillness is the answer. And I'll bet Chiron and Taurus is like the first one to say, I don't have time for that shit. I have work to do. I have money to make. I have resources to gather so that I can like build my sense of security. But it's this loop that like you don't ever get to secure from that path. Well, you eventually figure that out, but yeah. So
Yeah.
it seems like it's time, and I'll bet this north node, because it's moving this way. So it's headed into Taurus soon, like February, I think, of 2022. And then it'll spend 18 months going through Taurus, do a little retrograding in there. So this time of working through some Chiron blocks and those shadows, and also like highlighting your midheaven. Like not only is your Chiron here, but your midheaven is also here. So this is your soul's wound, like the greatest pain that you're going to feel in your life. It's also your soul's work to like demonstrate that. And at the heart of Taurus is inner peace, stillness, calm because you know that your safety is guaranteed. Calm because you know that the path will always have plenty of resources for you because the universe has your back. You are supported here because you are alive. So there's no need for money. Like money doesn't even factor in to that perspective, right? It's a relationship between you and your connection to the divine. So as far as that being your soul's work, it seems really fitting that your struggle with your pain and the medicine that you make, and then giving away that medicine is like all tied together with what you came here to do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Do you have a hard time carving out space for quiet and stillness and letting go of
Pretty much. I literally have to plan a vacation to separate myself.
So like daily, that's not something that's easy to do. Like
no,
you're pretty much like together with your like living as your work kind of thing.
And pretty much noticing the transiting effects towards my natal chart. Everything that happens within my fourth house, which should be your home, that's always work related. So if Mars goes in there, I always have some type of challenge work related. It's so funny. And then I started realizing, I was like, well, it does make sense because my life is my job. I don't have kids. I'm not married. So I pretty much just get glued to that.
Totally.
It's bad. I know it's totally bad, but yeah.
Dude, I know it's not, there's no bad or good when we come to this kind of thing. But also the way that I like to think about the fourth house is it's your home, but more than that, it's the place where you feel totally comfortable being exactly who you are. Okay. So most people don't have a home. Most people are homeless in this world and they don't even know it, because there's nowhere in the world that they feel comfortable being themselves. So for starters, that's it. But like you said, like, you know, if we're going to have this fourth house theme playing out, it has to play out in my work because that's the only picture I'm painting, kind of thing. And I mean, you have these oppositions here between like Mars and your midheaven and Mars and your Chiron. And then naturally just like, you know, Uranus and North Node should be opposite too. So I think like it's probably not wrong that your life is your work, like to a certain extent. Like this up here, all of this, and like your North Node being in your 10th house and like your Chiron in your 10th house, like you clearly came to focus on your work and like making an impact out into the world. But you know, this is part of that. And this is like getting like to be successful with your 10th house stuff, you have to be successful with the 4th house of creating that space for yourself where you do feel comfortable being exactly who you are. And so much of that is like even getting to know who we are. You know, like it's hard to be that if we don't even like let it bubble to the surface at all. And then once we do let it bubble to the surface, then loving it and then liking it and all of these steps along the way of like embracing and being okay with who we are, because until we can do that, home doesn't really exist for us. So like the deepest meaning of the 4th house is where we love ourselves. So having your Mars and your Uranus in the 4th house, like obviously that's going to be a theme like through your whole life of kind of like redefining what does home actually mean. And the fact that you are so transitory at this phase in your life, like I think that honestly just makes it easier to define like what does home really mean, because it has nothing to do with your physical address. It has everything to do with the relationship we have with ourselves.
That's a great perspective. Thank you.
You're
I've never heard of
welcome.
it like that.
Good. Good. Yeah, I like that because I like to move around. And I grew up in the same home basically my whole childhood. And it was like the most stifling place I've ever been. And then I move and I live out in the world in like random apartments and I'm starting to feel at home. And it got me thinking, like, what does that actually mean? Because it has nothing to do with the people that are there or like what the structure is or anything like that. Like it's something that exists inside of us. So yes.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, very cool. Okay. I haven't looked at the chat at all. So the only one who hasn't gotten to say anything, Krasen, can you tell me how to say your name?
Do you hear me now?
Yes, yes, yes.
I'm Krasen. I'm from Bulgaria, and I am a student for astrology. Forgive me for my bad English as well.
It's very good.
And, okay, so I will write here my data.
Okay.
It's, if it's okay, of course.
Yeah, for
because,
sure.
I don't insist.
Nope, that's all good. Put it in the chat and I will add it onto my account here. The date. as well.
So, sorry, yes.
That's okay.
maybe the city is a little bit hard to find.
No, it popped right up. I
Okay.
almost have it on the screen. Turn the transits on. All right, share this guy. Okay, so.
Yes, so my question is about my north node, and I see it in 6th house, and I could never understand it. I know that in when it's in Aries, I should be more into action, but in sixth house doesn't speak a lot to me, and I'm not very from the I'm not person that is going right into the danger. I'm not very courage. I don't have a lot of courage. I'm a little bit always stay a little bit behind the action, and maybe because of my Scorpio, but this is another topic. I mainly want to understand how to move to this north node so I can be more courageous, if this is the word.
Totally. The first thing that I want to point out, and you weren't on the call yet, but Gigi at the very beginning had us look at her French chart, and she is also a Libra rising with the South Node conjunct and the North Node just on the 6th house side. So we just looked at a chart that like literally was South Node in Libra, North Node in Aries, just like this. So you gotta love like how these things come together. So to get us into this, I want to.
Erica had, sorry, and I just wanted to say that Erica had Mars in her 4th house as well.
And yes, and you have 0° Mars as well. So, and I don't know if you were here for that part of the conversation or not, but yeah, it's fun to see how all the things weave themselves together. So to get us into this, let's look at the archetype of the 6th house, because you said you have some difficulty connecting to like what does that mean? This is how I like to think about it, is the 6th house is where we go from concerned with ourselves to concerned with the collective. The ultimate expression of the 6th house is to develop some sort of technical skill that like a tradesperson almost, that you have like a special skill that you've taken time to develop. And then within the community, you can be of service by providing that skill to the community. Anytime we're talking about 6th house or 12th house, I always like to talk about kind of like divine selfishness or being the selfish giver, where you're putting yourself first on purpose so that you can fill your cup and you can fill your own energy and rest and take good care of yourself, take good care of your own health, so that you can be of service to the greatest number of people that you possibly can. As opposed to if you did, try really hard to take care of everyone else first, sooner or later you burn out. You run out of energy to give them. You have nothing left to give, and now you're a burnout shell of a person that has nothing to give to anybody. And so now you have to recover, and then you have energy again. And I have 6th house energy in my chart, a good big chunk of it, and a long time I went through those cycles of give it all away and burn out, and then you have to recover and then give it all away and then burn out. And it took me several times to realize like I need to take care of myself first, because that's actually good for being of service to the collective if I take good care of myself. So that's the first piece. And I think Aries, where that is very much our foundation of our own self-identity, like not who we are to other people, just in a raw form, who we are. Like forget about the rest of the world and let that sense of yourself bubble up from inside. Who is that? And when you put the 6th house and Aries together, I see that like that sense of self that just kind of bubbles up from inside of you, that raw expression will be of service to other people. So like the more you're able to connect with who you are and like be authentically expressing that out into the world, that it does add value for people. And you don't really have to understand how that happens to trust that I am who I am and I'm gonna put that out into the world unapologetically. I'm gonna be myself, and whatever that looks like, let people, be served by that, however they will be. That's kind of up to them, not your business. How does that land so far? I have some more I could add, but not to get ahead of myself here.
Okay. I thought that it's because I know that the 10th house is the career and the 6th house is like how your day passes at work. Every day you go to work and you met the same colleagues and you work with the same people that are probably archetype areas. And I thought that it's something connected with my colleagues and that I have to be alone in what I do at work every day, because when the North Node is in 6th house, I thought that I have to work alone. But if I work alone, then the Aries doesn't actually work, because he has to lead some small group, at least small group of people to be in front of something. So what you say actually explains, because I have to find my true self, which is the clear Aries, and I understand it like that. If I find my true self, and Aries is always the sign that doesn't have anything behind. He doesn't think who he is. He doesn't think what surrounds him. He's just his pure Aries, and this is what I understand. I just have to be myself when I am at work, and not only, but when I have to, because the 6th house is also healing the body, and I was trying to connect it to astrology, because astrology can be used to heal the body, and I'm quite interested in that. And this is it. So I hope that I understood it right.
Totally. And so I'll add a little bit to that. So the 10th house and the 6th house, how they're different is the 10th house is how the world sees you for the work that you do, and like your legacy, your reputation. And then the 6th house is like the reality of the day-to-day experience of your work. So the example that he used was like, imagine you're a world-renowned author and you write novels. And so your 10th house, the world knows you as this really great novelist, you're an excellent writer, yada, yada. But the 6th house reality of that is that you wake up late, you chug a pot of coffee, you wear your sweatpants all day, maybe you shower, maybe you don't. And you try to write something down on the paper and like contribute to your next work. So the 10th house and the 6th house are two very different facets of our work and like who we're here to be. I do like though that like this, your 6th house just barely begins in Pisces. So like Pisces technically rules your 6th house, just like up top here, Virgo, it's that cusp for the 12th house just barely landed in Virgo. So Virgo rules your 12th house. And then your midheaven is in Cancer. So the 6th house and the 10th are both starting in water houses. And so again, as far as like what you're saying of like, I like to kind of stay on the background and I like to listen and observe and kind of see how it all comes together. I don't want to just be like on the front lines, like charging forward, like this is who I am. I have the stick of fire. Like that doesn't feel like me. Two things about that. One is our North Node will always feel like a challenge, like a step out, like completely outside your comfort zone type challenge. So that's not unusual. But two, I think you do carry a lot of this water energy. You know, you have several placements here and this angle, this midheaven angle, that's not insignificant. And so it's not necessarily about being like one or the other. It's more about like, how do you weave it all together? And the thing about Aries is, you know, it has a lot of traits that it gets prized for, like its warrior spirit, its ability to just jump right out there and be itself, and it's uninhibited and quick decision making and all of these great things, which in its place, it's really great that it's that way. It also has a really bad rap when it's in its shadow side for being impulsive and, you know, neglecting others in the pursuit of what it wants and all of these other things that, you know, the shadow of Aries is not very flattering. So how can you use this energy that says, I want to kind of stay on the sidelines, I want to observe, I want to listen, I want to take it all in before I just jump out into the middle of it? Maybe that's like on purpose. Maybe I think it is on purpose that you would have both. You would have this ability, this natural inclination to take it all in, to digest the energy around you before you assert your individual self. And you think about it, like at that point, while our individuality should never be like a response to life and what we're living, it should be like an authentic expression. But if first you soak up all of the energy of the people around you, then your authentic expression is kind of based in this context of like knowing the energy around you. So hopefully at that point, it lands more gracefully than Aries typically does. But you still get the bang of Aries, of being able to assert your individuality and to put yourself out there. Because the beautiful thing about that is that as a collective, like as a society, we are basically stuck in this place of society. And any progress or advancements that we make as a collective come through individuals. So individuals who have gotten sick of society and they've mutated and they now do it this way. And if that individual keeps all of that to themselves and doesn't ever share it with anybody, then that mutation, that advancement, that progress never gets out into the world. So with an Aries North Node and with Aries energy in general, we are tasked with believing that what we have to say is valuable enough to put it out into the world and have the collective spend their time listening to what you have to say. And, you know, that's a journey that I think our North and South Node, like that's a lifelong journey where it'll probably feel uncomfortable for a long time, but believing in the value of yourself and what you have to say, and that you don't just jump right out there. You do take it in and you synthesize and you contemplate and you reflect and you put the pieces together. So by the time you do have something to say, chances are it probably will be worthwhile. And really the only thing that ever stops you from doing that is your belief in yourself, right? Like believing that people don't want to hear what I have to say, or like it's just the same as what everybody else says, or, you know, like downplaying the power of your individuality. I think that's what a North Node in Aries is having to like overcome, is like you are being asked, actually you signed up for stepping into your individual power, like the power of your individual perspective. Granted, all of us have that same power, but I think this configuration, this placement, it especially, it's like that's your whole lifelong process, is you stepping onto that path of realizing that your individuality has the potential to create like massive ripple effects in this world if you share it. And with it being in the 6th house, like it'll most likely be shared in that spirit of being of service to the collective. You know, it's not about gratifying your ego. It's not about just talking just to talk because I'm Aries and I have to put myself out there. It's like, what can I say that will genuinely be of service to the people who do take the time to listen? So intentionality and why am I doing this? And, you know, raising your self-esteem works for basically any shadow work ever. But yeah, all of that kind of coming together. I think when it does pop out, when your individuality does come out and come to the surface where other people can see it, it will be very impactful. Probably because you don't do that very often. So like anything else, like when somebody hardly ever speaks and then they open their mouth and they start talking, everybody's just like, wait, what? Like, I have a brother that's like that. He says like almost nothing. And when he does, it's profound little nuggets that he just like drops right in the middle of everything. And it's like, how do you do that? Well, he listens a lot. So don't discount the staying on the sidelines and like taking it all in, because that plays its part. And to that end, I do want to just, maybe you know this already, but the bottom half of the chart is kind of where we figure out ourselves. And the top half of the chart is where we move out into the world and we figure out who we are in relationship to the rest of the world. So I bring this up because clearly you have a lot of planetary energy happening on that bottom half of the chart, where it's like that's very introverted energy. So probably again, the thought of kind of bursting forth in your Aries fire is like, I just can't do that. That's just not who I am. But I think it's going to be really powerful when you figure out how to do it. So yeah, hopefully that adds. I mean, I could go on and on and on about your chart, but I
Quite
think
a
that's
lot.
a good chunk.
I can reflect on this maybe one day. Thank you very much. It was
Yes.
Quite a lot. I will think a lot over this.
Cool. You bet. And that's like pretty perfect on time. Do you guys have any other questions? Anything else? I will share real quick, just since we have a few more minutes. I did just put, wait till I did just put on my YouTube channel an interpretation, and maybe some of you already saw this, an interpretation for Venus conjunct Pluto, which is happening in Capricorn. It starts at the end of November, goes all the way through December, the first part of January, and then another month from February to March. So a lot of time that this Venus is spending conjunct Capricorn, or sorry, conjunct Pluto in Capricorn. And I bring that up for two reasons. One, this is my first attempt at interpreting transit energy and like making a video of here's this transit energy that's coming and here's how to work with that energy. I found it extremely satisfying. So I do think that there will be more of those types of videos in the future. Also, if you have a transit that you're looking at, shoot me a message. And as I get to it, I mean, I'll definitely consider the ones that you're wanting to see. And I'll give you just like the super quick version of Venus conjunct Pluto, because it's happening for all of us over these next few months. Venus being our value system, how we value, what we value, how we love, how we like to be loved, all of that is wrapped up in our Venus placement. And then Pluto wanting to make a transformation of kind of that Phoenix rising from the ashes of burning down the old thing so that the new thing can be born. And Capricorn being our relentless hunger and determination to do the great work that our soul came here to do. So what do you get when you put all of those three pieces together for the next few months is our value system, which at its root is our self-valuation. So what do we think of ourselves? How do you rate your own self-worth? And so that coming into conjunction with Pluto is like the universe is going to pick up your self-worth, and every single interaction these next few months will be like a mirror to show you your self-worth. And what that's going to look like is if we are out of alignment, or if we're, valuing ourselves at less than what we are truly worth, which I would argue probably all of us are doing that to some extent, life's going to show it to us in the structures that we've built for ourselves. So our job, or our relationships, or our housemates, or whatever it is, the structures that you're currently engaging in, they will become a mirror for the valuation that you've given to yourself. So if you've undervalued yourself, that looks like your boss giving you a valuation that says, you're not working hard enough, you're missing the mark, we need you to work on XYZ, and totally missing all the value that you're creating. And it's not your boss missing the value, it's you missing the value. You haven't valued yourself highly enough for your boss to be reflecting that high self-valuation. So a couple of things in this. One, I am most excited to get to go through this and pay attention to the good things, because this is not just a time about figuring out our blocks and all the ways that we're undervaluing ourselves. In this time, if somebody gives you a compliment, look at that again, like it's a mirror, and this is the universe reflecting that you are solid in your own value in this place. And that's why they're reflecting that, hey, you're really good at that. And I'm the worst about being oh, thanks, and then totally forgetting about it 5 seconds later. Really take it and take it in and internalize it as, this must be something about what I think of myself, that I see my own value when it comes to these things, and kind of use that to nurture your own self-esteem. Self-esteem building is easiest when you focus on things that you're already confident in, and try to become more confident in those things, and let your weaknesses kind of catch up along the way. But the second thing, and let's see if I can get it back because I kind of lost my train of thought there. Oh, so if you get negative things, if the world is reflecting negative things to you, as in you feel unappreciated or undervalued, or people are flat out saying to you that you're doing it wrong, or you're not, blah, blah, blah. One, it's not really them. They may or may not actually hold that opinion of you. It's really not the point. It's really a reflection of your own self-valuation. So again, over these next few months, carving out time for shadow work to be with the negative reflections that might come up, and see how might this be a reflection of me missing my own value, me being overly critical of myself. Yeah. So both of those things, I think it'll be a powerful time to realign our self-valuation with the great work that our soul came here to do. Venus in Capricorn is extremely serious about getting to the point of what work did your soul come here for. So any of these structures that are giving you reflections of they don't appreciate you enough, probably the answer is that that's not the right structure for you. And as soon as you upgrade your own self-valuation, the correct structure is going to manifest around you. First, by the old structure crumbling, that Pluto piece of first the old stuff has to burn to the ground, and so the new stuff can get born in its place. So during this time, if our structures feel extra rocky, or things are falling apart, or any of that, I would just encourage you to be with the knowledge that anytime anything falls apart in our life, that's because it's meant to. And that always on the other side of that, there is something new that's wanting to come into your world. But if we're holding on to the things that we have, there's no room for what's coming next. So this is going to be a time where we let go of our limiting beliefs, and hopefully some of the things that no longer serve us and are only standing in our way from that Capricorn drive to do the great work that our soul came here to do.
Thank you,
So really
Carly. That
good.
was amazing information. Very helpful. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for the whole time today. I've learned so much, and you're such a pleasure, and you're such a wonderful teacher. I
Well,
appreciate
thank
you.
you.
I need to sign out now. I've got something planned this afternoon, but I want to thank everyone else here also. It's been a pleasure being with you. And Carly, you're the best.
Thank you, Gigi. It's always good to see you.
Bye.
Always, always.
Thank you, Carly.
Thank you.
Bye.
I
Talking to
Thank you,
loved
you.
getting to watch how it all gets woven together. So yes, thank you so much. I appreciate everyone's energy. My goal is to do these every couple weeks, I'm thinking, as long as I feel like it. That's always my golden rule. And next weekend, though, at this same time on Saturday, I am going to do a session very similar to this, but about human design charts. So in my work one-on-one with people, I do a lot based in natal charts. I also really like human design charts, which are basically built on the same concept as the natal chart wheel. So if you already know astrology, learning human design is like the natural next step. And it has been super fulfilling for me, which is always where my teaching comes from, is that I had success and saw value with it. So I like to share those kinds of things. So that's what will be happening next Saturday. And then I think I'm going to do another session like this about natal charts the following Saturday. So yes, all of that good thing.
Thank you so much, Shirley. Have a
Yeah.
great weekend.
Thank you. You
So,
too. So good to
bye
see
then.
everyone. Take good care. I'll see you next
You
time.
too.
Okay.
Thanks
Bye.
again. Are you able to email us the recording of this group or this?
Totally.
Yeah, that'd be
Uh,
great.
Does it work if I put the link on the meetup event, like in a comment? Looks like
We
it
could
does.
try it. That'd be
Yeah.
cool.
I can also message it to you, but I typically pop it into a comment under the event, and it should be up like here in an hour or so. But yes, so check back on that later today. And if
Okay.
you don't see it, I can definitely email it to you.
Okay. And if someone is wanting a private reading with you, do you have something on your website or do they just contact you by email?
So I am offering packages of readings right now.
Mhm.
So they come in packages of 4. So 4 90-minute Zoom sessions. The idea is that they would happen at least 2 or 3 weeks apart, so that we do a 90-minute session and then there's time for processing and digestion and then do another one. So the whole container lasts 2 to 3 months. And the idea is that I really, really love getting to know people on a deeper level and working through like one piece at a time in their chart and really trying to like move the needle for them energetically by not just skipping around kind of at a surface level, like really get into some stuff. So I offer 2 options with that. If you want just the Zoom sessions, it's $500 and that gets the four sessions. And then there's another option where it comes with basically real-time support in between the sessions through WhatsApp. So either texting or voice messaging back and forth, so that, you know, in those 2 and 3 weeks between the sessions, if you're wanting to talk about like, oh, I had this epiphany about what we talked about, or like basically continuing the conversation in between, I do offer that as well. And that's $800. So that's 4 sessions plus the ongoing conversation for those whole 3 months. So those are the 2 options that I'm offering right now, wanting to kind of get a little bit deeper with people. And if you do want to book that, you can go to my website, owningauthenticity.com, and under the offering section, there is a place for one-on-one sessions, and you can get to the link through there. Yeah. So that is where I'm at. And otherwise, if you like anybody who's looking for free content, my YouTube channel, I'm putting more on Instagram these days. Really my focus at this point is building up my stockpile of free content that people can just digest no matter if they have the resources to find or afford one-on-one training or not. I want that to be there. So that's there as well, but I do always enjoy getting to do those one-on-one engagements as well.
Great.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks again for everything. Have a great
Yes.
weekend.
You too. Thank you, Erica. It was so awesome getting to see you again. Have a good one.
You too.
Okay, bye.